We are a far cry away from the initial switch to cope, in which you had people coming out and saying third parties don't matter on Switch 2 because nothing ever releases on Switch 2. You saw a lot of people saying, these completely fraudulent, unverified claims that third-party games were failing on Switch 2, that all the third-party publishers would never support Switch 2, that the support it was getting would dry up very, very quickly. You still see a lot of people saying these things today. And they simply put are not true at all. And that's becoming more and more clear every time we get a major new third-party release. Whether it's something like Indiana Jones or Tales of Arise or Street Fighter 6, we are seeing very clearly that these games are doing numbers on Switch 2. Now, they don't need to be the highest selling on Switch 2. They just need to get the ball rolling, to release on the console, get like a couple of million people on board, and then slowly start choking out PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Because people don't realize that the only reason people buy those other consoles is because of the illusion that Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, the annual sports games, the basic bitch casual games will never, ever come out on a Nintendo console. And if they did, they would be missing features, not have online play, not look as good visually, and just be, inferior ports, essentially. We've gone through this process like several times over the past 2 decades. And what really strikes me about it is how the normies don't seem to understand that none of this really applies to the Switch 2. We are dealing with a Nintendo that does have a stable online infrastructure, that can handle third-party games, that is simply too big to write off or ignore, right? We're past this period where, third parties could gaslight their investors into thinking that the Switch 2 isn't relevant or that their audience isn't on the platform. You have a handful of holdouts, right? Especially in Japan. But for the most part, the entire idea that they had that PlayStation would be their primary platform and that Nintendo would just, eventually be driven out of the industry, that's not happening. Okay. And a lot of third parties have bent the knee and they've surrendered. They've acknowledged that Nintendo has won and that they're here to stay, and that the PlayStation Xbox dichotomy has just kind of completely collapsed. Okay. We've seen a lot of traditionally PlayStation adjacent franchises like Yeast, Trails, Atelier. They've gotten some huge numbers on Switch over the past several years. And it's only going to get worse from here. But today, we received the biggest sign that change was upon us. We received hard confirmation that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, I don't know where we're on now, but the new annual Call of Duty is indeed launching on Switch 2. I believe it's confirmed to have crossplay, so there's no concerns of only playing with other Nintendo owners. I believe that this is going to be a version of the game with all the features, all the content, and considering the inclusion of Game Chat, considering the state of the online infrastructure, this is going to be a version of COD that is identical to all of the others. And I feel as if the masses aren't prepared for what that means, in which the annual first-person shooter that every 40-year-old boomer tries to play in order to relive his college years, right? That is now coming out on Nintendo Switch 2. Okay, one of the unholy trinity has bent the knee. After the annual sports games, another aspect of the unholy trinity has bent the knee. Okay, we've been getting a lot of Maddens. We've been getting the PlayStation exclusive MLB The Show. We've been getting I think FIFA, or I'm sorry, the new FIFA. I don't know what they call it now, but we've been getting all these sports games, all of which are doing fairly well in their niche, right? Third-party games are doing really, really well on Switch 2, and it's only going to get worse from here. The idea that companies are going to fail or are going to not support Nintendo Switch 2, it just hasn't panned out. It's just not true at all. And honestly, there seems to be only one holdout. There's only one video game franchise that is of the unholy trinity that is still maintaining kind of the illusion of superiority and the illusion that they have any real power or control, and that is GTA. Okay, Rockstar is like the last remaining pillar of the unholy trinity. Like without Rockstar, the entire thing collapses. And considering how there's no possible way for the sports games or COD to go back to the way things were before, like GTA, I think really is the final pillar. Like, at what point is Grand Theft Auto going to bend the knee and release Grand Theft Auto 6 on Switch 2? Because if it doesn't happen this console generation, it'll almost certainly happen next console generation. Like, remember, we went through an in-console. The Nintendo Switch became the highest selling video game console of all time without Grand Theft Auto 5. Again, like Rockstar is not in a position where they can like act as if they're bigger and better than Nintendo. They are Nintendo's bitch. They are going to see diminishing returns based on like their current business model and what they do. Okay, like they're going to try to do their thing with Grand Theft Auto 6. They're going to release it on Xbox and PlayStation and then PC a year later. Like, can they really afford to not support Nintendo Switch 2? Can they really afford not to support the primary player in like the only viable platform in the console space right now? Like, no. The simple fact of the matter is no. That Rockstar is not in a position where they can drive sales for PlayStation and Xbox and make them relevant. Like, even now, you have a lot of people who say that they're going to wait a year for the PC version. And I think in the Nintendo camp, you're seeing a lot of people say the same thing. Like, I am never touching a GTA again until they release on Nintendo consoles. Like, it doesn't matter how good Grand Theft Auto 6 is. It's just not going to happen. So these guys are reaching kind of the end point of their period of relevancy. They are trying very hard to create the illusion that Rockstar is the biggest and best video game franchise in the world. And the entire industry is rallying behind them. They're rallying behind them to say that this is the reason to own a PlayStation or an Xbox. Like, Grand Theft Auto is like the main character of the gaming industry. It's the most popular thing there is. I feel like people are not prepared for what's going to happen, honestly, when Grand Theft Auto 6 releases. Like, it's going to come out, and that's going to be it. You know, like, I keep seeing a lot of people saying that, like, Nintendo is going to adjust their release schedule or that they're going to, like, delay games until a couple of months after Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out because no one's going to be playing anything else other than that. That is completely delusional. You are probably going to see major Nintendo games launch the same day as Grand Theft Auto 6. Will GTA outperform it? Yeah. But that doesn't really matter because what's going to happen next month is that we're going to get another Nintendo game and then another and then another and another. And then, like, by next year, Grand Theft Auto 6 will be old news. Like, are people really going to keep clinging on to this idea that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to save them from Nintendo like a year in? No. Like, by that point, everyone's going to have moved on to Pokemon Winds and Waves or like whatever the next major announcement is. Like, Grand Theft Auto 6 is simply not impactful enough to leave much of an impression in the wider gaming space. Normies are going to stick with it for years, but normies don't really account for the vast majority of video game sales, okay? In a lot of cases, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be the only thing they play until the next Rockstar game comes out. Like, that's just the reality. This is the nature of the unholy trinity. Like, when it comes to the annual sports games, COD, and Grand Theft Auto, for a lot of these people, these are the only games they play. And this is why they will never, ever leave much of an impact on the far more dedicated hardcore Nintendo audience, where Nintendo players are going to be going out, picking up like different unique games all the time and be surprised by games like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book or Pokapia or like, Splatoon Raiders or whatever. Like, the simple fact of the matter is Grand Theft Auto can't do a thing to emulate that kind of style or success. All it can do is just keep being this like dark, demystifying like game, like demonizing Americans and American culture. Like outside of that, like Grand Theft Auto really has no appeal. And I do think in the next several decades, we are going to see Grand Theft Auto, much like rap culture and much like black culture in general, just kind of go bye bye. Okay, where it's not seen as cool, it's not seen as edgy, it's not seen as popular. Like Grand Theft Auto, I think is gonna. I think it's going to have the same problem that RDR2 did, where in spite of the fact you're supposedly playing as a criminal, in spite of the fact you're supposedly going around shooting anybody you come across, like the simple fact of the matter is it's going to try and like make it exceedingly woke. And it's going to try and push woke ideology onto you through the characters, in which you have these criminals sitting around talking about feminism and like, defending abortion and like, racial inequality, not like how these people actually talk, right? Like, again, they're going to try to use Grand Theft Auto as like a propaganda tool. And I feel like people aren't prepared for what that means, and that the game is not going to be fun. Okay. With Red Dead Redemption 2, I think a lot of people let it slide. But like with Grand Theft Auto 6, I think it's going to be rooted in a lot more with contemporary issues like the Troon thing. And it's just not going to leave a good taste in anyone's mouth. And, I keep seeing people make jokes about how they're going to like find the gay pride parades and shoot them up and like run people over. And like that, they're not going to let you do that. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be like these protected targets that you're not allowed to do anything with. And that's going to be like baked into the game's code. Okay. And there will be no like getting around it or like causing problems or like, trying to like make funny meme videos. Like it's just not going to happen. And right now we're just in this phase where people just don't want to admit it. Is that the simple reality is Grand Theft Auto 6 cannot possibly live up to the hype. Okay, we spent years being told that COD was the big thing. COD was the highest selling game ever. COD was going to keep Xbox relevant. And what happens? What happens? Microsoft acquires the company, and Microsoft's initiative is to release all their games on Nintendo platforms. Microsoft no longer believes in console exclusivity because they understand that there is no future for their consoles, essentially. So we are seeing like Activision bend the knee because of Microsoft's like having already surrendered to Nintendo. Like, it took 20 years to get to this point since the release of GTA 4. Well, 19. It came out in 2007. It's been like 19 years since the release of of Call of Duty 4. It's been almost 18 since GTA 4, and here we are. You only got one new GTA game, GTA 5. You got dozens of COD games that aren't very good and aren't very memorable. I think at this point people can't even remember all the titles. Like you got all these releases, and yet like the end result, in spite of the high sales numbers and in spite of their popularity and in spite of the critics and in spite of like the supposed overwhelming advantage they have over Nintendo, like in the end, they all end up in the same place, like releasing their games on Nintendo consoles, right? This is the very end of this era of third-party developers thinking they can boycott Nintendo hardware. Like after decades of this nonsense, it has reached its natural conclusion.